Ooh, this music's... Whoa!
In a world. It's like Jaws.
All right, everybody. We're ready.
That's the shark.
Oh, wait. August 21st, right? That's the date today?
Yes, sir.
Let me just write that down just to make sure.
And it's a Wednesday.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Off to a good start, I'd say.
Got the right day.
Your Ben Joravsky show for Wednesday, August 21st is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions for jumping on board and helping bring back our program. First up, it's the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 and District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the Operating Engineers, Local 150. I feel like there's something missing there from that. The International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. That's what it is. A giant thank you to those unions for jumping on board. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. The Ben Joravsky Show with a brand new camera starts now. It is Wednesday, August 21st, and live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, legendary Chicago journalist Monroe Anderson is back. It's the return of political strategist Candace Castillo and host of the Doris Davenport Show, Doris Davenport. And now your host of the Ben Joravsky Show, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this The Honeymoon is Over Wednesday. And here's why. You know why we're calling it The Honeymoon is Over Wednesday, D?
I've been packing my bags ever since you walked in and told me. I think I do know.
Because it's Wednesday.
Oh.
That's the Wednesday part. And the honeymoon is over. The honeymoon I'm talking about, of course, is the one that existed between progressives in the city of Chicago and Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Actually, I'm not sure that honeymoon ever existed, but let me just go through some of the lists that have evidence that it is officially broken up. Heard about it from Misha Patel. Yesterday when she was on the show. You can listen to it. She was talking about her disappointments with Lori Lightfoot on a couple of fronts, but don't listen to it now. Download it and listen to it later, right, D?
There you go. Good job.
All right, good. Thank you. I've learned that. And I read about it all in Marc Brown's column. Today's bright one, home delivered as always, about homeless advocates deeply disappointed by Lightfoot's shift to business as usual in politics. And I was, what is it called, texting back and forth with a certain alderman by the name
Look at you. So hip.
What is hip? Babe, I'm sorry.
There went the hipness.
1973, Tower of Power, one of my favorite albums. Anyway, with Carlos Ramirez Rosie, had an earful to say. He'll be on the show in about a week or so to talk about it at length. Anyway, yes, the honeymoon is over between progressives and Lori Lightfoot. I'm not even sure, D, it actually ever existed, okay? Most progressives in the city of Chicago favored Toni Preckwinkle in the April runoff between Preckwinkle and Lori Lightfoot. Remember that one, D? That was a long time ago. I remember it. Most progressives favored Toni Preckwinkle over Lori Lightfoot. I, of course, felt neither of them were truly progressive. This is my official position on the matter. If by progressive, you define it, and this is how I define it, by someone who was on the front lines in the fights for justice during the eras of Daley and Rahm, for the most part, Lori and Toni were sort of Democrats of the under-the-table persuasion, as in, hey, come on out now.
Who's under there?
A lot of Democrats. I don't want to get Rahm mad at me.
Well, there's Democrats under there now? It's usually Republicans.
No, it's they're down there with Browner, okay, hanging out.
Awful lot of space under that table.
No, there's a lot of space. People run under the table. Ben, you say that, not me, okay? You say that. All right. Ben will say anything, which is why he's always getting fired. Anyway, so that was my position, that neither one was really a true Democrat, but I think they were better than Republicans, and I think both of them were better than Rahm, so I think we're better off as a city. I will say that, to have Lori Lightfoot as our mayor as opposed to Rahm Emanuel, all right? Or Mayor Daley, okay? But anyway, that gets us to where they are today in terms of being progressives. When they were running for office, Lori Lightfoot and Tony Preckwinkle sounded like the second coming of, let's say, Ida B. Wells or Eugene Debs. They were advocating to do what they could to sort of make Chicago a fair, more equitable city that more favorably taxed let me say this, that taxed the wealthy to finance programs for the poor, make it a more affordable city, make it a more welcoming city, et cetera, and so forth. Well, over the last several months, Lori Lightfoot has won, abandoned many of those policies, including, most importantly, on the Lincoln Yards TIF deal, as we all know.
Number one.
Yeah, man, I forgot about that number one thing you do. So the Lincoln Yard TIF, of course, is that big mega project that will make Chicago more affordable by dedicating more of your property taxes to an upscale project in a gentrifying neighborhood that does not need any subsidy to be developed. Instead of fighting that plan, as she said she would do in the campaign, Lori Lightfoot is actually fighting the lawsuit that's intended to torpedo the plan. How about that, D? We talked about this with Misha Patel. Instead of fighting the plan, she's fighting the lawsuit. All right, that's not very progressive. And then, of course, today's Marc Brown column.
Is this number 2?
Yes, number 2.
Number 2.
Oh, thank you. Marc Brown's column, political columnist for my beloved Chicago Sun-Times, home delivered.
We got a new camera, by the way. So if you're listening to this, Ben, let's try and talk these people into watching the live stream.
Oh, wait, time out. I keep looking at that camera.
Yeah, you're looking at the wrong one.
Yeah, that's the one I should look at?
That's the one you should look at.
All right, I just have to say, take a brief break from
Don't be too aggressive. You're pointing right at them all.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Miles is, by the way, running this.
Miles
correct?
is our camera operator.
Man, look at Miles. Just the next Quentin Tarantino over there. Anyway, this camera, I like to give a shout out to an anonymous donor. He's anonymous because he wants to remain unknown, hence the anonymity. But he was so generous as to, contribute this camera to our cause, right, D? Is that the right way of putting it?
That was good. Yeah.
So anonymous
really
donor, thank you. Thank you. It's a great camera, and Miles is wielding it well. All right, now where was I on my list? Oh, yes, number 2, home delivered as always. Marc Brown's column in the Chicago Sun-Times. Lori Lightfoot, as a candidate, had promised to raise taxes on the sale of houses for more than $1 million and use that money to finance programs for the homeless. She has since retreated on that pledge. She still intends to raise the taxes on the well-to-do, the sale of, houses for more than $1 million, but she's going to use that money to cover basic operating costs for the city of Chicago. We have enormous operating costs in the city of Chicago. And I can't say that, D, that I can really have to hammer her and criticize her on this point, because once you're a mayor of the city of Chicago, you have to deal with your basic operating expenses, and one of them is to figure out how to pay your pension obligations, which the city has been shirking for many, many years, going back to Rahm and Daley. Well, mainly Rahm and Daley. They were the two mayors since 1989. And so Lori Lightfoot feels compelled to meet those obligations, and so she's retreating from that promise to use the money to fight fight homelessness in the city of Chicago. And she has many progressives upset, and I'll read this quote from Marc Brown's column from, let's see, who is the person I am quoting here? I just want to make sure. Julie Dworkin, Policy Director for the Chicago Coalition of the Homeless. And this quote sort of says it all. Quote, Lori Lightfoot's actions run counter to how the mayor promised to govern, she wrote in a statement. Instead, they resemble a textbook practice from a business-as-usual school of politics in Chicago, where candidates make bold promises to get votes during the campaign, and the reverse once in office due to circumstances they claim are unforeseen. Wow, that's pretty well written. Sounds like something I would write, D. Well, wait, that's kind of bragging, isn't it?
Yeah, that's big time bragging.
I didn't mean to say that. It was really well written. That has nothing to do with me. So anyway, yes, indeed, being the mayor of the city of Chicago is a lot different than running for mayor of the city of Chicago. And essentially, it seems as though when it comes to progressive issues and our mayors, promises are made to be broken, and the challenge remains much the same as it was during the Rahm years, and that is to force our mayors to raise taxes on the wealthiest people to fund programs that help the poorest people. And it seems as though, one, they don't want to do the first thing because that would lose support among the well-to-do, and they don't really want to do the second thing because when it comes to voting, most poor people don't vote, so there's really no repercussions for not being a progressive mayor. So that's the sad reality of progressive politics in the city of Chicago. And if it's any consolation, folks out there, and I know this is really not much of a consolation, but if it's any consolation, I can guarantee you that Tony Preckwinkle would be doing the same thing. We got a great show today, everybody. Monroe Anderson will be here. The legendary Monroe Anderson. Of course, I was off last week, so I missed my Wednesday with Monroe, and he is so fired up to talk about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is apparently deciding to do with Jewish voters what he did with black voters and try to look for an issue that could wedge them away from the Democratic Party. We'll see what Monroe's thoughts are of that. And also Greenland. All of a sudden, Donnie Trump was going to buy Greenland while I was on vacation, D. He's going to buy Greenland. Well, then apparently that deal is not working out. Talked to Monroe about that and all the other Trump news of the day. It's interesting to see, Trump is always taking credit for the economic upturn, and now it seems as though the economy may be going for a downturn. Will Trump find a way to blame that on Obama? Let's ask Monroe about that when he shows up. We also have Candace Castillo in the studio, the political strategist who oversaw several aldermanic campaigns in this last election. See what she has to say about Lori and the budget. And then she also says she has some interesting things to say about the upcoming Democratic race for president. I'm peeling that burn, D, right now.
You're peeling a burn?
I'm feeling the burn.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm feeling the burn. I saw his interview with Joe Rogan, and big fan of Joe Rogan. I don't know if people know that. I thought it was a great interview, and Bernie really laid out what he wants to do if elected president of the United States. And that, D, hold on, a little more burn Kool-Aid.
It
tastes good. So I'm feeling the burn. Remember, I was feeling like drinking that Kamala Kool-Aid about 2 weeks ago. We'll see which Kool-Aid I'll be drinking in a couple weeks.
I thought you said you were peeling a burn, like a sunburn. I'm like, sicko. Keep it to yourself. That's gross.
And it would be seen on the camera that is being operated by Miles. Anyway, and Candace. And then, finally, our final guest of the day, Doris Davenport, the legendary Doris Davenport. She wants to talk local politics, national politics, all kind of political. She's got all kinds of theories about Jeffrey Epstein, and so we'll be looking to engage her in all kinds of political talk. So it'll be politics. But before we do any of that, the young man from Alton with the news.
I'm Dennis. How's it going, everybody? We begin with the local news. Today, our Chicago mayor, Lori Lightfoot, is still vacationing with her family in Maine. Now, Ben, yesterday on the program, you had quite a bit to say about the state of Maine.
Yeah.
Most of it was pretty negative.
Yeah.
All of it, in fact, and kind of unnecessary if you ask me. You call the entire state of Maine really old. Now, you told me here before the show you had some time to reflect on it, and you'd like to make an apology to the state of Maine. Is that correct?
Yes. I'd like to pay apologies to the state of Maine. I'm really sorry. What I said yesterday was totally unnecessary, and I thought about it, reflected upon it, and
good.
I really feel bad. So to the state of Maine, you're not that old. I mean, okay, you're a little old, probably older than most people, even older than I am. Nobody wants to live in Maine. That's the main problem. No pun intended there. I mean, because it's like really cold.
The main problem. Get it, guys?
By the way, and you ever been driving through Maine? The streets are horrible. Well, no, Indiana's worse than Maine.
It's supposed to be a compliment.
But I love lobster. Did I tell you I love lobster? They have lobster.
There you go.
Okay. And I love Stephen King novels. Although, if you read any Stephen King novel, you're never going to want to go anywhere near Maine. All right? Then Maine had that insane governor.
I'm sorry, the state of Maine.
Oh, sorry, Maine. Didn't mean that. Why would you go to Maine?
Please stop. We're ahead. Let's keep going.
Oh, by the way, have you ever gone swimming off the?
I've never been to Maine in my life. It looks and sounds fantastic.
It's so cold. The water is so cold in Maine. I recommend going to Michigan or something.
Oh, okay. Well,
sorry.
All of our listeners in Maine, please stick around. We'd love to have you.
What was that crazy governor of Maine's name?
I don't know.
Frank when I need him, man.
Hey, Frank, governor of Maine. What's his name?
He'll have it in a minute.
Insane
Governor. He was Trump before Trump. He was more right wing and toxic than Donald Trump, if such a thing is possible.
All right, remember, people, August 29th, Mayor Lightfoot will be addressing the public with her Chicago budget plan. And according to our Lori Lightfoot budget address countdown clock, hear that? Shh, listen, that's the clock. You hear that?
Yeah.
Volume's kind of low on it. But according to that, all right, we have 1 week, 7 days, 172 hours 1,363 minutes and a lot of seconds.
Yeah.
That's a lot of seconds. 621,793 seconds.
All right. Before Lori delivers that budget
Before she
message.
delivers that speech.
All right. And let me just say this about that. Lori Lightfoot is no dummy. She's already shown that she knows how to play the game of politics pretty well. She has gone away, far away. She went to Maine, all right? And by the way, my apologies to Maine one more time. I didn't mean anything that I said about it, except for the part about the people being really old. Anyway,
Okay.
but anyway, she leaves town and then has her aides leak out stories about how it's going to be a very tough speech with some bad news, etc. So she's not here to absorb those first blows, but the message is already out. So it's officially all quote unquote old news by the time she gets her brilliant move by Lori Lightfoot. She learned from some of the masters, the maestros of how to trot out these budget things. And yeah, Dee, I think it's going to be bad news for people of the progressive persuasion when she delivers that message. She's clearly not, she's backing off on her promise about setting aside a fund to fight homelessness already. So as I just talked about by Marc Brown's column. So yeah, she's getting ready to deliver some bad news for progressives.
All right, Eddie, any specifics, anything you've had some time to think about while on vacation, this budget play and anything like that?
Well, no, this is 101 of budgets, what she's about to do. And we'll probably be talking a lot about this, but what an incoming mayor always does is present the worst possible scenario, what a budget is, to the people, so that in this case she can blame it on her predecessor, Rahm Emanuel. And I do not feel sorry in any way for Mayor Rahm. Mayor Rahm spent 8 years in office blaming everything on his predecessor, Richard Daley. The only difference is, will Lori Lightfoot name Mayor Rahm? Remember, Rahm always would blame his predecessor for kicking the can down the road. Remember that one, Dee? But he would never name the predecessor because he's still scared of Mayor Daley. So we'll see if Lori Lightfoot is afraid of Mayor Rahm. I don't think Mayor Rahm has the same fear in Chicago politics that the Daleys do. So anyway, so yes, this is 101 of politics. You blame everything on your predecessor, and then any improvements that occur, you take all the credit for them. If there's any improvements, you can take. By the way, Donald Trump is doing the same thing with our economy in the White House. We'll be talking about that with Monroe. Blames anything bad he can on Barack Obama, and anything good he can, he takes credit for. So that's what Lori Lightfoot will be up to at her speech next week.
All right, let's talk some more city news here. Mayor Pete, welcome to Chicago.
My community is in anguish right now because of an officer-involved shooting. A black man, Eric Logan, killed by a white officer. And I'm not allowed to take sides until the investigation comes back. The officer said he was attacked with a knife, but he didn't have his body camera on. It's a mess. Look, we've taken so many steps toward police accountability that, the FOP just denounced me for too much accountability.
The following comes from the Chicago Sun-Times and one Sam Charles. South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg brought his presidential campaign to Bronzeville Tuesday night, addressing a host of issues related to race in the United States. Ben, I know you love Mayor Pete, so how was it? You were there, right?
No, I couldn't make it. What was I doing? I was watching Joe Rogan interview Bernie Sanders. That's what I was
bigger
doing.
fish to fry, I guess.
Yeah, but anyway, my beloved Brightman had an article about that. I got to give a shout out to Sam Charles. He had a great sentence in there, and I don't want to step on your story. Do you have a follow up on this one? All right,
It's got quotes.
All right. Well, anyway, the story in the Sun-Times and the Tribune, got to give the Tribune credit too. They concentrated on this point. So, all right, follow me on this, folks. Pete Buttigieg, as you all know, 37-year-old mayor of South Bend, Indiana, and he made his name in about the last 3 months running for president of the United States. Has raised more money than pretty much anybody outside of Warren and Sanders and Biden. He's really elevated his presence. He's a very good talker, smooth talker, very smart guy, clearly, D. Got a great resume. Let's give him a shout out, give him some love. At the same time, as mayor of South Bend, he has not had, how do I put this, the best of relations with South Bend's black community. We had Henry Davis on the show talking about that, the former councilman, current councilman in South Bend who ran against Mayor Pete. And so Mayor Pete, as a result, he's very unknown. And the first news that most black voters hear about him is sort of a negative one. He's at 0% among blacks in public opinion polls, D. 0%. Can't do much worse than that, 0%. Henry Davis, who's a wise guy, says he thinks that Donald Trump has more black support than Pete Buttigieg. Henry, I disagree with you on that point, but it was a funny line. Anyway, so today's story in the Sun-Times and the Tribune is about how Mayor Pete went to Bronzeville. Let's give him a shout out there to preach the need for unity between blacks and whites. He went to the Harold Washington Cultural Center and he gave a speech. And guess what? The place was packed and almost everybody in the audience was white. I first learned about this from our good friend Sergio Mims, who talk about a wise guy.
Hey, Sergio.
Sergio put on his Facebook. Now I was wondering why there were all these white people on the train going to the South Side. Now I know. And it was a link to Sergio's got a million of them. Anyway, here's what Sam Charles wrote. Pastor Chris Henry of Bright Star Church introduced Buttigieg to the stage and noted the largely monochromatic nature of the audience in his warm-up address. Quote, next time we have this kind of event, especially in Bronzeville, clap if you agree. We need some more black faces, Harris said to rousing applause. Next time, you can't leave your black and brown friends at home. I love that on two fronts. Number one, the use of the word monochromatic nature. I want to give a shout out to Sam Charles. I had to look it up, D. Do you know what monochromatic means?
No.
One color. I'm reading, I'm on the train going, dang, this is a smart guy for the Sun-Times. I looked it up. And then I, of course, immediately texted Romana, who is a guest every Friday in the Ben Joravsky Show, Romana Hussein, editor for the Chicago Sun-Times. Hey, Romana, did you do this? I want to give her the shout out. No, she couldn't even take credit. So we're going to have to give Sam Charles credit. Chicago Sun-Times writer, that's a pretty good line. Monochromatic nature of the audience. And then I like Chris Harris's quote, next time you can't leave your black and brown friends at home. Yes, sir, that applies to Pete. Hey, Pete, I got advice for you. Call Henry Davis. I got his number. You can give him a call. Maybe he'll come to your next rally. All right, let's. You know what? Racial peace starts at home, and so let's deal with the issues at South Bend, and maybe you'll be higher in the polls with black voters.
All right, on to the Illinois governor.
After years of neglect, Illinois is finally getting its mojo back, and we're open for business.
And unlike Mayor Lightfoot, J.B. Pritzker is definitely not on vacation. One look at his Wednesday schedule will prove it. And my Lord, does this man love signing legislation? A quick recap here, by the way, of what our Illinois governor, J.B. Pritzker, loves. The rock band, the Eagles. The Steve Miller Band. Horses. And that's not a band. He really loves actual horses. He bought a horse farm right after he won the election.
Yes, he did.
And yes, signing legislation. Mm-hmm. Oh, and let us not forget this as well.
And for the record, I love puppies.
Puppies!
Yeah, JB.
Governor J.B. Pritzker was at the partially newly refurbished James R. Thompson Center. I say partially, just his offices are refurbished.
Come on, you can't expect him to pay for the whole office.
The whole thing.
Good God.
He was
I spent all that money in the horse farm.
He was at the Thompson Center in the morning to sign legislation strengthening protections for immigrant tenants throughout the state. His afternoon plans include, yes, signing more legislation. At the St. Leonard's Ministries, Pritzker is signing a legislation package expanding voting rights, civic engagement, and educational and rehabilitation programming in Illinois' criminal justice system.
Yeah, okay, very good for him. I'm basically pretty pleased with J.B. Pritzker's reign as I have some issues with him. The gambling bill, I got some issues with him, as everybody knows, but by and large, I can't complain too much about J.B. Pritzker. Big improvement over the last governor, that's for certain.
Now, we have mentioned several times here on the program that this new governor, complete 180 of the old one,
Mm-hmm.
The one who just vetoed damn near every bill that came his way. Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner.
Yay for our teachers! Yay for our teachers!
Him.
I knew you were going to play that.
But hey, don't get it twisted, all right? Governor Pritzker knows how to veto bills, too. Pritzker today has vetoed SB 2124, which provides that a student must be expelled for a period of not less than 1 year if he or she brings to school a school-sponsored activity or event, or an activity or event that bears a reasonable relationship to school, a spring gun, paintball gun, or BB gun, irrespective of the type or size of projectile that can be fired or the gun's muzzle velocity.
All right, now I have a confession here. I'm not aware of the ins and outs of this particular bill, but I'm very curious that you're reading it. So the bill would what would the bill do? Mandate punishment, a certain type of punishment if you bring a BB gun to school?
Yeah.
So in other words, if you bring a BB gun to school, you're automatically punished by, like, I don't know, suspended for a day or two or something like that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. When I read a little more here, I think you'll understand.
My bad.
The bill passed the Senate unanimously, and only one person voted no in the House. Our Democratic friend, Delia Ramirez.
Okay.
Here's the statement from Pritzker. Quote, today I veto Senate Bill 2124 from the 101st General Assembly, which would have amended the Illinois School Code. My administration appreciates the hard work of the sponsors of the legislation in the Senate and the House. While this legislation was well intended, the school code already equips school boards, superintendents, and administrators with the tools necessary to discipline students who bring inappropriate, potentially harmful objects to school. The statement goes on to say, quote, our state must do everything possible to prepare students for academic success, career advancement, and civic life. Too many students are derailed during their academic careers and entangled in the school-to-prison pipeline. State law should be crafted to ensure that students are not disproportionately disciplined in a manner that affects the long-term trajectory of their success in school and life. The school code reflects this philosophy by recommending that school officials consider forms of non-exclusionary discipline prior to using out-of-school suspensions or expulsions.
I see where he's going with this one. But this unanimously passed the Senate, and only one person voted no in the House. All right, so if they choose, they're going to obviously override his veto. So this is going to be evidence, folks, of one of two things. One, a showboat move by Pritzker, like when it gets overridden, he could say, hey, I tried. All right, he didn't fight the bill when it was on the floor since it passed unanimously in the Senate. So it could be a showboat thing. Or you could watch the maestro at work, Michael Madigan, bury the bill and not even bring it up for a veto vote, in which case it just quietly gets vetoed. But either way, I have to think about this and ponder this one as I go through my day, D. I understand that you don't want to send kids off to jail too early or too soon, but dang, bringing a gun to school? I don't know. I think that should be outlawed, don't you? So that's my general thoughts on that one. But you said downstate, people would be opposed to...
I don't know if they'd be opposed, but like just gun culture is just completely different downstate, hunting.
Yeah. Well, it got it was passed unanimously in the Senate and almost unanimously in the House, so it doesn't seem like there's much downstate opposition. So anyway, I got a feeling this is either going to be a showboat move by Pritzker, or you'll watch the maestro bury the veto vote.
All right, so there you go. Some local news happening today. Ben, do you feel that in the air?
Oh, yeah. Feels like football season?
It is football season, which means that the best sports reporters in Chicago want to offer you, yes, you, our listeners, an exclusive deal on unlimited digital access to all, and that's ALL, all the stories that you love. Don't miss a game this season. Get all the big play scores and stories from the Chicago Sun-Times for a limited time only. You can lock in our lowest rate yet, only $29.99 for a full year of all the news and sports that you need to know. Stay up to date on breaking news, get the deep dives and investigations from Sun-Times reporters, and go deep inside City Hall with the best in-class political reporting, and of course, cheer for the big games with the best sports team in the city. $29.99 for a full year of unlimited access. You cannot do better than that. Take advantage of this exclusive deal now at suntimes.com/Ben. Don't go anywhere, people, because coming up after this little break, we are going to talk with the legendary Chicago journalist Monroe Anderson. Yes, he's here and he's ready to riff. We'll be right back, everybody. Attention Chicago innovators and creators, 2019 Chicago Ideas Week is coming soon. This week-long annual Ideas Festival is returning in October, and it's the largest, most affordable Ideas Festival of its kind. They bring in hundreds of thought leaders from around the globe and some local to share ideas and spark action. To get a better idea of what to expect, here's a bit of audio from last year's Chicago Ideas Week with special guest and Chicago comedian Cameron Esposito.
Everything that I have ever tried to do has had two motivations. One is I really do believe in trying to create social change. And then the other one is I'm scared and alone too. So I would like for you to join me. You know, every job that I have, I try to make sure to hold the door open. That's like my motto for like if I get through, you're coming with me. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. And especially if I have more privilege than you, like I'm holding the door open for you even wider.
For more Chicago Ideas videos, head to chicagoideas.com/watch. And to get a sampling of what we have coming up for the festival, chicagoideas.com/attend. Tickets for Chicago Ideas Week go on sale to members on August 22nd and general public September 10th. Once again, if you're a creator or innovator in the city of Chicago, you do not want to miss Chicago Ideas Week. For all the information that you need to know, head to chicagoideas.com, and we hope to see you there.
Hey, everybody, what you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. Jeff. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Commercial break over. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed. We are live from the Chicago Sun-Times. And the legendary Monroe Anderson is in the building. I missed you, Monroe. I didn't see you for a full week.
Oh, I know. Well, you were laying on the beach working on your suntan.
That's what I was
Look at it. Look at that tan.
I know.
I was just laying there feeling really good, walking through the water, having great thoughts.
Right.
Walking through the water.
Right. See, and the good Lord gave me mine. Said, don't worry about it, Monroe.
The good Lord gave Monroe that beautiful tan. Oh, thank you, good Lord. Every day you wake up.
Exactly, right.
Thank you, good Lord, for this beautiful
Except
tan.
when I get stopped by a cop.
Yeah. And then in which case, Lord, can you give me a break?
Exactly.
How about a break on this tan thing? So anyway, so much Trump news to talk about. And of course, Monroe and I have been having an ongoing Trump conversation for over 2 years now. And
right, and I have a question for you.
go ahead. I love questions.
Yes. Are you Jewish?
Yes, I am.
My God, this is shocking to me because I didn't realize that there were all these things you didn't know and how disloyal you are.
Yeah, and dumb. Don't forget that
yeah,
part.
right, exactly, right. And dumb. Yeah, right, exactly.
Yes.
All of you.
ahead.
I guess, 80%. Yeah, the 80% that vote Democratic
Now,
instead of Republican.
I know you're like saying many of my friends are Jewish is one of those things you shouldn't say. But in the case of Monroe, I know you have many Jewish friends,
yes.
right? Are any of your Jewish friends voting for Donald Trump that you know of? Are any of them?
Not one that I know of.
80% voted against Trump.
Right.
Effectively voted against Trump in the 2018 elections, correct?
Yes.
And yet Donald Trump has decided that the key to his political reelection is to go full out to try to separate Jews from the Democratic Party.
Well, he's a separator. You know, his whole political MO is divide and conquer. Mm-hmm. And so he separated us. You know, he separated Muslims. He separated Mexicans and South Americans and gays. And the only person that he hasn't separated, two groups, Russians and white nationalists.
And some might say they're the same thing. He loves Russian operatives for Putin,
right?
And he loves white nationalists,
right? Exactly. But other than that, screw you.
All right. Well, let's take a little deeper dive. We'll be talking about this at length tomorrow. I know Lori Glenn will be coming in the show to talk about this. She's all fired up. But Donald Trump, I guess he was just riffing yesterday in an interview, and he again was coming back to his favorite theme, which is to put the head of Congresswomen Omar and Tlaib on the necks of the Democratic Party.
Oh, they're the symbol. They've been in office for seven months.
7 months,
and now they're the total embodiment of the Democratic Party.
That is correct. That's what Donald Trump's operative movement is all about. And also Congresswoman Presley, but not as much from Massachusetts.
But you know what his problem is?
Well, which one?
Yeah, right. That the symbol of the Republican Party is Donald Trump. If he could get away from that, he'd be in good shape.
Yeah. Well, that's a very good point. He is the symbol of the Republican Party. Anyway, and so, of course, while I was gone, we didn't talk about this because I wasn't here.
Right.
Donald Trump baited Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel into denying access to Israel for Congresswoman Omar and Congresswoman Tlaib.
Right.
And Trump, it looked as though Israel was going to let them in. They were going to tour Israel and various spots in the Middle East.
Right.
And then Donald Trump tweeted, this happened last week when I was on vacation, saying...
he said, if Ben's on vacation, I can get away with it right now.
And that Monroe won't be around. That dastardly Monroe. Yes. No. So he tweeted, Israel would be weak. This is what he tweeted. Israel would be weak if they allowed these congresswomen in. And so Netanyahu took the bait. He is in a heated re-election fight of his own. So he wants to look, quote unquote, tough on whatever, Muslims, blacks, congresswomen from America, and he denied them access to Israel, and then in the fallout that it's been about a week, Donald Trump doubled down like he loves to do.
Well, another thing happened while you were on vacation. Israel changed their minds and invited Tlaib. But they had all these restrictions. She couldn't go here. She only could use the bathroom between noon and 2 in the afternoon, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And so she chose, although she wanted to see her 90-year-old grandmother, she declined. And then they said, I thought you wanted to see your 90-year-old grandmother.
By the way, we should bring our good friend Ray Hanania back. Recall Ray was on the show with you about 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and he was saying the reason he voted for Trump because he thought Trump would be more open-minded to the Palestinian cause. And how's that working out, Ray?
Right, I know. And Ray is a Palestinian Christian, which makes a difference.
Well, whatever. He still voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so anyway, yes, they said Tlaib could come. She said she didn't want to come with those restrictions.
Right.
And so Donald Trump then doubled down yesterday in a press conference on our side where he said that any Jew who votes for the Democrats at this stage is disloyal.
Yes.
And Monroe, that whole thing about being disloyal
is an anti-Semitic trope.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely. And Mayor Rahm.
You guys have been disloyal in Germany. You've been disloyal. You've been disloyal all over the world.
It's always an excuse. They're disloyal.
Exactly.
Poland, Germany, Russia, disloyal.
Right, exactly. Now America.
Yes. Wow. And I just never thought I'd see a president openly saying it. You know what I'm saying? He went where nobody would dare to go.
Books and movies 100 years from now will be still talking about the stuff that people never thought Donald Trump would say, a president would say. He's going to become the poster child for villainy among presidents.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Every time you don't think he'd go lower,
right,
he goes lower.
Right.
And I just want to put this in the context. This is the same president of the United States who refused to denounce Nazis who were marching through the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017 with their little torches. Remember that?
Oh, so they're good people on both sides?
You're good people on both sides.
Yes.
This is the guy who's suddenly worried about Jewish people.
Oh, well, not only that, but with this whole Greenland, Denmark thing.
Yeah.
He called the prime minister nasty. Now that's something he says for women. Any woman who upsets him or anything, she's nasty.
Yeah.
And he said that she was the reason he's not going, not because of Obama, of course, but because she was disrespectful to the United States.
Yeah, so we'll get into that. Yeah,
okay, right.
Yeah. Well, no, because that's he's associating. She's not talking to me. She's talking to the United States of America. Was the quote? We'll get to that.
Okay.
That was the height of hypocrisy for Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, right. Exactly.
Okay, the height of hypocrisy.
Who talks bad about everybody but
Donald Trump. Yeah, well, okay, yeah. All right, so let's go back to what he's trying to do with Jewish voters.
Okay.
I contend it's the same thing that he is attempting to do with black voters,
yes,
which is separate them from the Democratic Party.
Right.
Now, in the case of Jewish voters, I think the strategy is he's actually hoping that Jewish voters will vote for him. Yes. Okay, so instead of voting for whoever the nominee is,
right,
they will vote for Donald Trump, and that
right,
could help them in swing states like Florida and Pennsylvania, et cetera. Okay, with black voters, I think he doesn't really believe that any black person would vote for Donald Trump.
Oh, he does. He's a narcissist. Remember?
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
But strategically, the best he could get, and realistically, is that they don't show up to vote at all.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a strategy of most Republican operatives.
Well, that's the Republican Party in general. I mean, that's why they have all these key states where they're suppressing the vote, like Wisconsin, for example.
Or Georgia.
Yeah, exactly. So they're suppressing the vote. But what they've managed to do is fire up African Americans so much that if they have to stand in line for 5 hours to vote against Trump, they're going to do it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that for a moment. The black vote for Donald Trump.
Right.
And I've had this conversation with many people over the last few months. They'll see videos on YouTube, et cetera, of black people extolling the virtues of Donald Trump. There's a few high-profile cases.
Yeah.
And from there, it's easy to make the assumption that a lot of black people are for Donald Trump.
Right.
In your humble opinion, is that an accurate statement to make?
God, no.
Just throwing it out there.
I have 3 Facebook friends.
Okay.
Out of 5,000.
Okay.
That are for. Now, well, all of them aren't black, of course, but these three black Facebook friends who are for Trump, and
3 of them,
right? Exactly. And when they tried, James N is one.
Oh, our old friend James.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then Stephanie Trussell, who has a talk show on one of the radio stations. And then there's this guy, Willie Love. I don't know where he comes from. But anyway, these are, and none of them make any sense whatsoever. I mean, zero sense.
Yeah.
And when they're extolling the virtues of Trump, what I will do is tell them, well, what are all his black advisors in his inner circle say? Then I go, there's only one, Uncle Ben. And that's it. Out of his entire everybody.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't come by accident, especially when you think that Stephen Miller is the most powerful man in the West Wing right now.
That's frightening.
Yeah, who's a white nationalist. But then the president is too. So
yeah, I urge everybody. By the way, there was an article in the New York Times, which I think it came out this weekend, about Stephen Miller. Talked about the role he plays, his bizarre own evolution to the philosophies that he has.
Right.
He's extremely. He has an extreme hostility to immigrants from south of the border, which is maniacal.
Right.
don't quite understand it.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not borne out by any reality
Right.
that exists in this country.
And they just put forth this morning a new policy that they're going to have where they can keep as family, immigrant family, in detention in perpetuity. So basically, we're going to have concentration camps in America for Hispanics.
Yeah, and you just saying that, well, if you calling them concentration camps will be tweeted out by the right. See, this is part of the insidious games that they play.
Yeah.
So they'll say Jewish voters. He called them a concentration camp. That denigrates what Jews went through in the Holocaust. This is part of them, like the mind game where the Republican Party is at now, like this political jujitsu that they're doing.
Except they just dismiss me because I'm godless and far left, so I'm hopeless. I mean, I don't even count as far as they're concerned.
The right wingers engage you on Facebook. They love to battle you on Facebook.
Right.
And when we took calls at the old show, they loved until you scared them all off.
Right.
They would love to try to engage you. So they do want to engage you. You know,
they try, but the problem is that all the nonsense they speak, I have an answer for it. I go to a link and I present the answer. You know, for example, with Trump making the claim that Obama kicked Putin, Russia.
Yeah, let's talk about this.
Out of the G8, so now it's the G7 because Putin outsmarted Obama.
Yeah, that's what Trump is saying.
That's what Trump is saying.
Yeah.
And this is why Obama, all by himself, I declare the out of the G8. It will now be the G7.
Yeah.
He failed to mention that Russia invaded and is occupying Crimea. He failed to mention that Russia shot down a commercial passenger airplane, and that might have a little bit more to do with it than Obama being outsmarted by Trump some mysterious way that we don't quite know about, because he never spelled this stuff out. He just makes these declarations, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, he makes declarations that may or may not have a kernel of truth.
Yeah.
To go with all kinds of made-up fantasies.
Right.
And then the mainstream media, I talk about this, the media's responsibility is to break out the truth from the fiction.
Right.
And by then, he's moved on to something else.
Right.
And most people aren't paying attention
Well,
anyway.
according to the Washington Post, he's now up to 12,000 and some lies.
Yeah.
In almost 3 years.
Well, let's talk about this obsession he has with Barack Obama in that example you just gave, where he is faster to vilify Barack Obama than he is to vilify Vladimir Putin.
He never seriously. He has never ever said one negative thing about Putin. Not one. He hates Obama because Obama fronted him off at that correspondence dinner. Remember when Obama did his routine and said that deciding between meatloaf and somebody as to who's going to be fired really keeps him up at night.
Yeah. Yeah. But by the way, he had already Trump had already targeted Obama with tweets, etc. It was 2011, I think it was the year, if I get the year correct. It was the night. It was a speech Obama delivered the night before their raid, where Bin Laden was killed. I don't know if you know. There was that night. It was a Saturday night, and then on Sunday was the raid. And Trump was in the audience, and Obama mocked him, but Trump had been promoting the birther theory for months.
No, he was the godfather of the birther theory. He didn't create it, but he kept it going.
Yeah.
And, I don't know if you recall this or not, but at one point he had sent some private investigators to Hawaii to prove that Obama wasn't born in Hawaii. and you'd be surprised at what they're finding, what they're going to come up with.
Yeah. And by the way, I wouldn't be surprised. He had a kind of sort of back off from that during the presidential campaign.
Right.
He was very reluctant to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if he brings it back. With some court, if he feels that strategically it's going to work for him, or if he just loses his mind and goes off on that discord.
There is a growing theory that the man is cray-cray. I mean, seriously, that he had, and if you'll recall, a year and a half, 2 years ago, whenever you and I first started having our conversations on the air, I said that I thought he had early onset Alzheimer's, and it's getting worse.
I think there could be some validity to that. I do. Either that or he's crazy like a fox. But so the
he could be both.
So what's your sense of how effective? Okay, so his strategy to separate blacks from the Democratic Party.
No, it's not. That's not the real strategy. The strategy is to fire up the Trump nuts, so that they come out in greater numbers. This is going to be a base election, and so if he can fire up the Trump nuts, those because some of them didn't vote either. So, and he's not going to win the popular vote. He may lose the popular vote by as many as 5 million. But the way geography works in this country, there are certain key states where there are more Trump nuts than there are smart Americans, intelligent Americans. So he could get an electoral college victory. At least there's one theory on that.
Yeah.
And that's what they think he's playing for. It's just, again, Philadelphia, Michigan, Ohio.
Well, there's the keys to winning those states. It's a two-prong attack that we've been talking about today. One, get Jewish voters to flip and vote for him,
right.
And two, to repress and suppress the black vote as much as possible,
yes.
Either by making them black people wait 5 hours in line, like you say,
yes.
all the little tricks of the trade that
right.
they play, or just feed this sort of nihilistic attitude that there's no difference between a Democrat and Republican, and why bother voting either way. But each one is an effective tool and tactic to use.
Yes, and the Russians are at play on the internet. So you have that, the people that gave us Donald Trump the first time are trying to give him to us again, and so they are playing around on the internet, and it's now been realized that they can actually get into our voting systems.
Yeah, right.
It's not just bad PR.
Yeah,
it's not just bad PR, but they can actually hack our voting systems.
By the way, a thought just popped in my mind going back to Obama and Donald Trump and the way Trump tries to blame Obama for absolutely everything. One of Trump's great claims is that the economy has really boomed under him. In fact, in your great debate with Willie Wilson, which by the way, was one of the great debates of all time,
right.
Monroe and Willie Wilson.
On the Nixon JFK.
Willie showed up at the show early a couple of weeks ago when Monroe was here, and we ushered him right in immediately. And Willie Wilson, of course, the former mayoral candidate, city of Chicago. And he was there promoting his reparations plan, which I have a lot of sympathy for.
Yeah.
But at the same token, he doesn't want to raise taxes on rich people to pay for it.
Right.
So I'm not sure how we're going to pay for this reparations plan. Right. I pointed that out to Willie, and he managed to avoid dealing with that issue. But you guys got into a debate. Willie's a little sympathetic, let's put it that way, to Donald John Trump.
Yes.
And he was
speaking of lost black men.
Stop it. So Willie Wilson was saying, well, you have to give Trump credit for the booming economy and black people going to work. And you said that was Obama.
Yes.
And then he immediately said, well, you can't, if you know what I mean, you can't. You got to give Trump credit for some things. You can't have it two ways on it. So what if the economy turns?
Yes.
Is that going to be Donald Trump's fault, or is he going to figure out a way to blame that on Obama?
Nothing is ever Donald Trump's fault. It's when things are good, it's because he did it. When they're bad, it's because of somebody else. Right now, apparently, it's the Fed if the economy goes bad, it will be the Fed that messed it up because they didn't cut the interest rates by 1 full point.
Okay, so he's got an excuse already.
Yes.
By the way, all right.
And part of why he's been acting so crazy for the last couple of days is because Fox, of all places, had a poll out that had 4 Democrats beating him in the election.
I missed that. I missed that when I was on vacation.
Right, exactly. 4. Biden beat him by, I think, 18 points or something. I can't remember, but huge. Bernie beat him. Harris beat him. Warren beat him. So, yeah, that's the 4.
That's 4. All right, now let's, I got to ask you, since you mentioned the Democratic candidate, it's been over a week. You know me, I sort of fluctuate week to week. I was drinking that Kamala Kool-Aid a little while ago. Now I'm feeling the burn. So are you feeling for Mayor Pete by any chance? Are you feeling the mayor? He was in town. He went to Bronzeville.
I like the lady who has a plan for everything.
Oh, you're feeling you're drinking that Elizabeth Warren Kool-Aid?
Exactly. I like Elizabeth Warren. Although, again, any of them would be better than Trump.
Yeah.
You know, if Delaney.
Why even mention Delaney?
If Delaney says, "Oops, changed my mind, I'm back in the race," and he wins.
Wait, time out. I must have missed something. Did Delaney drop out of the race?
Yes.
Well, I was on vacation.
Right, exactly.
Nobody told me that.
Exactly,
D, you didn't send me a text.
Oh, man.
I missed that.
He's out, but Steyer is in.
Oh, well, no, I already knew Steyer was in.
Yeah.
Maybe Delaney dropped out and I've just forgot. He was so bad in the debates.
Right.
He was my least favorite Democrat.
Yeah, and the governor.
Oh, Hickenlooper's out.
Yeah, Hickenlooper's out.
Yeah, Hickenlooper's out.
Yeah.
So that leaves.
And he's going to run for the Senate.
Well, good. He should have run for the Senate in the first place.
And that's a problem with the Democrats right now.
Many problems with the Democrats.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but instead of Beto running for president, he's not going to get it. Then he should drop out and run for the Senate. Stacey Abrams refuses to run.
Abrams,
refuses to run in Georgia.
Yeah.
She wants to stop voter suppression, which is not a bad mission.
No, it's an important mission.
But if Democrats don't take over the Senate, then we can have a president in the office, and Moscow Mitch will still screw it all up.
Well, you know, what I was listening to Bernie Sanders. Is part of the reason I'm feeling the burn. He had a long interview with podcaster Joe Rogan, and it was a setting in which Bernie was allowed. Rogan allowed him to speak his mind. So Bernie was laying out all his philosophical views, his intentions as president, and it was interesting. The strategy that Bernie says he'll employ, even if Moscow Mitch is still running the Senate, the strategy he says he'll employ is sort of a Democratic version of what Trump would do. In other words, it's a Democratic. Donald Trump goes to swing states or to red states and proclaims, he's the emperor of the United States and whips up his supporters, and that's his strategy. Bernie Sanders says that if elected, he would go to states like Kentucky.
Yeah.
And he would rally Kentuckians against Mitch McConnell. Like if he says, if I am elected president and I'm forced to deal with a Republican-led Senate with Mitch McConnell running the Senate, what I'll do is I'll take it right to his doorstep. I will go to Kentucky. So it's a Democratic version of what Trump does. Trump takes
the problem is Kentucky is a Republican state by far. So that would be sort of like going to the KKK and pitching them NAACP policies.
Well, I hope it's not that extreme. All right,
almost.
Oh my God, you just shot down any hope I had.
Right, no.
You don't believe Bernie has any chance whatsoever of getting people in Kentucky or states like Kentucky?
Well, some people, but not enough. Yeah, I mean, this is America, so there's all kinds. There's good people on both sides, in the Republicans and the Democrats.
Well, I will note, I read an article. It was an article in the paper about coal miners in Kentucky, who are taking a stand against the coal mining company that shut down and left them without jobs and really left them in a precarious situation. And these coal mining companies are supported by Republicans, but instead of targeting the Republican Party,
right,
the coal miners are non-political. Now I'm like, why are you non-political when it comes to backing off on what Republicans are doing to you?
It's racial. Yeah, with the farmers, it's the same thing. They are losing their shirts. Some of them are losing their farms because of Trump's tariffs. Mm-hmm. They're losing their markets. But they're still sticking with them, and the only reason for that is because he says the things they want to hear about all these immigrants and other people of color.
Mm. Well, I am going to try to remain optimistic and hope that the Democratic message will get out, that the message of hate that Donald Trump is preaching. I feel naive even saying this, Monroe, right. Okay? I feel naive even saying this. But Donald Trump's efforts to divide black people,
right,
Jews,
yes,
Hispanics,
Muslims, yeah, women,
yeah, women.
Over
50% of the
51% of the vote. Yeah,
unbelievable.
Right. Yeah, right.
That any woman in this country would vote for Donald Trump at this stage.
Well, his numbers have changed dramatically now. I think they're. He only has the support of 20% of college-educated white women.
20%?
Yes.
Wow.
Right.
Well, there's a little hope in that. All right, that's Monroe Anderson. I'm Ben Joravsky. Our next guest, Candace is in the studio. Candace Castillo is in the studio, ready. She's ready to go. We're going to continue this political talk when we return. Did you guys know each other?
Today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Discover the breadth and majesty of Chicago's architecture on a Chicago Architecture Center bus tour. From bungalows to Bauhaus, our expert docents will share the fascinating stories behind our city's architecture. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a bus tour right now. My, look at that wonderful piece of architecture. Get a special discount for Illinois residents from July 15th to August 15th. All Illinois residents get 50% off select walking tours. Visit architecture.org/IL-resident.
Did you know that 40% of the people in Illinois opt to be cremated? Well, it's true. And Chicagoland Cremation Options honors their wishes by providing cremation services directly to the general public. Chicagoland Cremation Options provides an affordable, ethical, and easy cremation arrangement, whether in person or online. Save thousands and streamline the process by going directly to Chicagoland Cremation Options. It's a family-owned business operated by my good friend, Douglas Klein. Here's how you reach them. ChicagolandCremationOptions.com. One more time, ChicagolandCremationOptions.com.
Read the Chicago Reader to get up to speed on what's what in Chicago. Culture, food, arts and entertainment, weekly concert listings, weekly event listings, the environment, travel. I can continue, but you get the point. And for all of you Chicago political junkies, raw weekly columns on real city politics from Maya Dukmasova and our very own Ben Joravsky. The Chicago Reader, free to the public in newsstands throughout the city and online at chicagoreader.com. Read it now and be a more informed Chicagoan. Attention Chicago innovators and creators, 2019 Chicago Ideas Week is coming soon. October 12th through the 17th, this annual Ideas Festival is back, and it's the largest, most affordable Ideas Festival of its kind. They bring in hundreds of thought leaders from around the globe and some local to share ideas and spark action all across Chicago. To get a better idea of what to expect, here's a bit of audio from last year's Chicago Ideas Week with special guest and Chicago comedian Hannibal Buress.
The real reason I came home is just because I was traveling a lot anyway. I wasn't in New York that much, and I don't have a full-time job in New York. I work a lot, but I'm not in New York, so it was just like, I don't need to be here anymore. And also I just wanted to work on different stuff here in Chicago. So I have this center that I'm working on the west side, Melvina Masterminds. It's going to be arts and then a tech program and after school programming for kids in the North Austin area. So just wanted to be back. There we go.
October 12th through the 17th, it's 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Tickets go on sale to members on August 22nd and to general public September 10th. Once again, if you're an innovator or creator in the city of Chicago or even outside the city, you must join us for Chicago Ideas Week, October 12th through the 17th. For tickets and event information, head to chicagoideas.com. That's chicagoideas.com, and we hope to see you October 12th through the 17th.
With zero.
Okay, everybody, hour number 2 of your Ben Joravsky Show for Wednesday, August 21st is just moments away. But before we get into that, we need to thank the following unions once again for jumping on board and helping bring back our program. First up is the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local 126 in District 8, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 9, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150. A giant thank you to those unions once again for jumping on board and bringing back our program. And, of course, today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you by our good friends at the Chicago Federation of Labor. Hour number 2. Let's go! It is Wednesday, August 21st. And live from the Chicago Sun-Times Chicago Reader Studio on Racine Avenue, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. In this hour of the program, we still got Monroe Anderson in studio. We welcome back political strategist Candace Castillo. And it's the return of host of the Doris Davenport Show, Doris Davenport. And yes, Doris will be bringing her awesome dog. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist Ben Joravsky.
Yes, indeed. Monroe Anderson still in the studio. Doris Davenport's about to enter the studio. And Candace Castillo is here as well. It's been a little while since Candace has been on our show. And people go, when's Candace? Like, it's not that easy to book her. She's a very busy person. Got important a lot of things.
Kind of busy.
Yeah.
Kind of busy. Plus, I had a couple of vacations in there.
Oh, you had me too. I had a couple of vacations as well. I had one vacation, I should say, but I'm back and I'm rested. You walked in on our conversation. I was talking to Monroe about Mitch McConnell, and you said you want to add something to it. I have no idea what you're going to add, but add away.
I disagree with Monroe.
Whoa, there we go. That wouldn't be the first time someone disagreed with Monroe.
I mean,
But they would be wrong.
Okay,
I think Kentucky is deep, dark red.
Yes.
However, I think you have enough voters in Kentucky who are affected by Trump's policies that racism and xenophobia and homophobia may not be enough because they're also looking at their bottom lines. I say we gotta treat Kentucky like we treat everywhere else, and we just have to knock and stomp doors. And if it does anything, let's suppress that vote. It takes a lot because, of course, Christian conservative states, abortion, gay rights, all of that, that's where they're going to throw you, right?
Right. And those southern states, people went to schools, got educated on the war of aggression from the North.
As opposed to the Civil War.
Yes, exactly. I mean, and they believe that to their bones. They do, So no, there are good people in Kentucky, but what I maintain is there aren't enough. Yeah.
Well, here's I don't know if you came in at the outset of what that conversation we were having, and I was saying that I would listen to an interview that Bernie Sanders gave with Joe Rogan on his podcast, and Bernie was saying that if he were elected president and he had to deal with Mitch McConnell, he would take his campaign to Kentucky on a regular basis to put pressure on Mitch McConnell in Mitch McConnell's home state to back off on certain issues that would benefit all Americans or most Americans, regardless of race or wherever they live. And like, let's say on a minimum wage, raising the federal minimum wage, something like that. That was Bernie's point.
I can be crazy and idealistic. I don't think that we can deal with Mitch McConnell again. Period.
Exactly.
Period.
Exactly.
We can't deal with Mitch McConnell. So, like, one of the vacations next year might to be knock doors for the fighter pilot that's running against him, because we can't afford Mitch McConnell in the Senate again.
Right. Because he will continue to block, and he will continue, if they have the majority in the Senate, he will continue to stack the courts with lifetime right-wing judges.
So you don't think that Bernie could be successful in that strategy? If any Democratic president, let's say Mitch McConnell wins his reelection, and retains the Republicans retain the Senate, you don't think there's any hope for a Democratic candidate to get legislation through the Senate through Mitch McConnell?
No, I think that we have to take the Senate races just as seriously as we're taking this presidential.
Exactly.
Because we can lose the presidential, keep the House, win the Senate, and be in a much better position. We cannot afford to lose the Senate, period. We need to be able to take the Senate and the White House, which is a tall order.
Right.
We cannot afford to lose the Senate. And guess what? If we win the Senate and keep the House and Trump wins, impeachment sounds better and better every day.
Oh, he's going to be impeached. They're going to start impeachment inquiries in about 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Whenever they get back to the House, it will begin. In fact, it's not official, but it's already going on.
They've already said
they've
that
already
the
started doing it. But they're going to do him while you were on vacation. The majority.
Everything happened when I was on vacation.
Right, exactly. That was like the Richard Pryor joke where his father told him to be home at 11:30, and he would see his buddies. They say, "Well, what's going on?" I said, "We're gonna beat your bitch after 11:30."
Okay, that's Monroe Anderson. That's Monroe Anderson. Yeah, that's Monroe Anderson. That's not me. All right.
The views and actions of Monroe Anderson do not reflect those of the Ben Joravsky.
Right. Yes, they don't.
Exactly. No. So
of a certain generation.
Yeah. Right. So when you were on vacation,
yes, go ahead. Yeah.
A majority of the Democrats in the House have gone to the notion of impeachment.
I think right now the number's 153.
Yeah.
While I was on vacation, fortunately, unfortunately, in Belize, you get all of the news, and I was able to watch the debates and everything else. There's CNN and MSNBC in Belize.
Yeah, well, I was in Michigan. See, I could have watched anything, but I just wanted a break from it all. But I did note, I don't know where I saw this, speaking of Democrats who have now come out for impeachment or an inquiry, investigation. Lauren Underwood, the recently elected congresswoman.
Yesterday.
Was it yesterday or the day before? I saw the article. She came out for impeachment, correct?
Right.
Impeachment proceedings beginning. And she had been, one of those swing districts. She just won it. And Democrats, she was one of those type of Democrats that Pelosi was concerned about because they're not in safe Democratic districts. And she came out from impeachment, which I thought was pretty significant. And immediately she was counterattacked. I saw, this is what alerted me to it, because I got the email. For some reason, they always send me these emails, Candace, counterattacking or balistering. So in your opinion, you're a political strategist. You've run campaigns in many wards and areas, city of Chicago and swing districts, etc. Do you think that's a safe political position for Lauren Underwood to take?
It's not safe, it's right. it's not. She needed to come out for it. She's in the Naperville area, right? Which is a swing district, which economically and socially it's changing rapidly. And Trump's behavior has economically affected the people of that area. Yes, they are of a certain tax bracket today. And that's it. It's financial, right? But Trump is not a financial conservative, which allows her to have some wiggle room. The deficit is up.
Trump's tax break reform. What he did was to get at the states that don't support him. He cut the taxes where if you paid more than $10,000 a year on your house, you couldn't write it off.
He limited the deduction you could take on.
Exactly. And Naperville, I'm sure they got hit hard by that.
Yep.
The people in Naperville.
All right. So I know it's the right position to take in terms of impeachment, but the safe and cautious position to take as well. One of the things I wanted to ask Monroe about, and I'm really curious to hear your position. I heard a little bit about it when we were on break, is the fact that Mayor Pete came to town. Speaking of Democratic candidates for president, Mayor Pete came to town, the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, made a visit to the south side of Chicago in Bronzeville, the Harold Washington Cultural Center on 47th and King Drive. And he made his pitch for black voters by calling for what he calls a Douglas plan, named after Frederick Douglass. Using Frederick Douglass's name.
Yeah, who's doing quite well after Trump got elected.
Yep, I tell you.
Frederick Douglass is... Yeah, he's almost famous now.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Frederick Douglass.
Everybody loves Frederick Douglass. You know, I saw him chilling downtown the other day, right?
Right, exactly. We had lunch last week.
So are you feeling Mayor Pete these days?
No.
Okay. Even though he came to Bronzeville?
No. Yes, Mayor Pete came to the epicenter of black gentrification in Chicago. Let's be real. Alderman Jeanette Taylor talks about how she was born and raised in that area. The Harold Washington Cultural Center came, and her rent and taxes went sky high. So yeah, he came to the epicenter of displacement of black people in Chicago. Wow, thanks. Who did he talk to before he came? I have a feeling I know, but Mayor Pete is a non-factor. Period. Some people may look at him as a vice presidential contender. He cannot get the black vote. And a lot of people, I've heard people say, oh, because black people and gay people, the LGBTQA plus community just don't get along. No, it's not that. It's his record in South Bend. Please talk to Henry Davis or Stacey Davis Gates about this. Has been deplorable. He has been deplorable on black people. And he needs to go somewhere and have several seats.
Say that again?
He needs to go somewhere and have several seats.
Not a seat.
Yeah.
Several.
Several. So, Monroe, were you feeling it for Mayor Pete yesterday when he showed up in Bronzeville?
He has good rhetoric, but the problem is his record doesn't back it up. But I think he's very smooth at the way he's doing this, and he's trying to make this move. But this 20 years ago, I was on the board of the National Association of Black Journalists, and we had this thing called Unity with other minority journalists. It was the Hispanics and the Asians, Native Americans. The gay journalists have an organization, and they were trying to become part of the Unity, and it was widely opposed because the theory was that there were many gay white men in the newsrooms in positions of authority that never ever did anything for any of the minority journalists.
Meaning the black journalists.
The black journalists and the Hispanics and the Asians. I mean, the Asians to a lesser degree, perhaps they did more for. But the thing is, there's no natural affinity going on there.
Do you buy that, Candace?
I don't.
Feel free to disagree with Monroe.
I So if we go back to the history of Bronzeville was the place that accepted queer black and white people.
I'm talking about white gays now, not
queer black and white people all the way in the 20s. There were clubs in Bronzeville that, well, it wasn't Bronzeville at the time, but all the way in the 1920s, they had full balls. So yes, I do agree that there has been a lot of gay white men, log cabin Republican white men who have denigrated the black, brown communities, women, and everything else. But I would not say that there's no natural affinity there. I mean, it's a long legacy, and you were talking about Richard Pryor earlier. Richard Pryor got in trouble in San Francisco because he asked the white male gay community, where were you during the Watts riots? However, I would not say that it's not a natural affinity there. I will say that it has become politically uncomfortable because, excuse the expression, but white men been white menin. Like they do.
Right. Well, that's my point. Yeah, right, exactly.
White men be white menin. I got to get that on a T-shirt.
But it's true. So your sexual preference does not take away your privilege. It doesn't.
Right.
And even though I get your argument of they haven't been doing anything in the newsroom for black or brown people or women, that has been true through history, but it's also been true that black people in America have been some of the most accepting people when it came to people that were thrown away, especially of white folks, by their families.
Go into that a little more. Explain that a little more.
So the white woman with the baby out of wedlock or with a black man was usually taken care of by some black woman in a black neighborhood. The young white guy that found himself to be an addict was usually taken home by some black woman in a black neighborhood.
But that has a lot to do with just our being some of the most forgiving people in this country. If you remember the 9 church members killed by
Dylan Roof.
Dylan Roof, they forgave him. Right? They just said, okay. We forgive you. You crazy and you screwed up and everything, but we forgive you. A lot of places, a lot of ethnic groups in this country, that would not have happened.
I agree. And it we're about to go all off subject. So it goes into a book that I've been reading called They Were Her Property. And it talks about how generations of white women back in the slaveholding days, it's always been assumed that they were like, oh no, I'm not the property owner. But it goes into the stories of cruelty that white women slave owners had toward their slaves and how they were raised to be that way. Right. But at the same time, they were being raised to be that way. Those black women were raised to be forgiving. Yes. And understanding.
Right.
And yes, my slave owner, who is 7 years old, snapped at me, but I have to make sure that I tie her shoe and feed her and comb her hair, and I love her even though she snapped at me. So we have institutionally been raised, black women especially, to be oh so forgiving.
Oh yeah, no. I was in South Africa a dozen years ago. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I was told by an African journalist is that in South Africa, the black Africans were taught to be docile. The whole education of them in the public schools or what have you was to be docile, to be respectful of white people, etc. So if you're raised that way, then more than likely you're going to be that way.
Mm. Well, all right, let's shift the subject a little locally. And Candace, I have to ask you, your thoughts on Lori Lightfoot. How long has she been in office now? 4 months has it been? I'm losing track of
Almost
time.
100 days next
Almost
week.
100 days. Yes, that's the 100 days. The first 100 days always a big moment at the early stages of any mayor's stint in office. And there was a column today, Sun-Times, I don't know if you had a chance to read it, by Marc Brown. Homeless advocates deeply disappointed by Lightfoot's shift to business as usual politics. I talked about this earlier in the show. Quote-unquote progressives in the city of Chicago were not exactly the biggest fans of Lori Lightfoot during the April campaign. Most progressives probably voted for Tony Preckwinkle, which just goes to show you maybe Chicago's not as progressive as I thought it was, since Tony Preckwinkle got swamped in the election. What's your general attitude toward those first 100 days of Lori Lightfoot?
She hasn't done anything that she said she was going to do. So elect a school board? Nah, she was part of blocking it. The teacher's contract, nope, she's not putting anything in writing, but I promise you're going to get all these new counselors. We're also looking at the Park District employees going on strike, ladies and gentlemen. People forget that. Also with the homeless shelters, even she's with the homelessness and Bring Home Chicago, even slow walking things around immigration in Chicago. Lori is who we said she was. She showed us who we were. Even if you look at the survey that her office put out around the budget, have you had a chance to look at the survey, Ben?
No.
Have you, Monroe? Mm-mm. Right. You want to know what's not on the survey? The LaSalle Street tax or the corporate head tax. You want to know what it is? Raising the bag tax. She is who we thought she was. Period. She is not for working people, the working poor, the poor in the city of Chicago. And it's evident by the wrong people that she's kept around. So her first 100 days says, all right, you are who we thought you were.
And so what's the natural reaction that you think progressives will have toward her as we head into this budget season?
The natural reaction the progressives should have toward her is the same natural reaction that we had toward Rahm. You prove this, so we will be at your door. We will be in the streets. We will be already starting to get candidates to run for other aldermanic seats and mayoral seats. You were elected with a mandate. Lori was elected with a mandate to do exactly what she's not doing.
Well, I'm kind of think about what you just said. She was elected with a mandate. I'm not. She was elected with a mandate. I'm not certain what that mandate was, because most of the progressive people, most of the progressive groups in the city who are upset with her now did not support her. So she might argue that I don't have a mandate. I don't owe you anything. You didn't support me. And so therefore, your mandate is not my mandate.
Sure. But she also was elected with the idea that elected school board was going to happen. Bring Home Chicago was going to happen. She was voted in with the idea that we probably wouldn't have a teacher strike. Mm-hmm. We're still looking at a potential teacher strike. We're looking at a strike of the Park District and the teachers at the same time, which is crazy because usually during the teacher strike, they send the kids to the Park District. This is problematic.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Okay,
That's crazy.
Let me point out something.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Here comes some Lori Lightfoot Kool-Aid. Hold on one second.
Right, exactly. No.
Tastes delicious.
And Kool-Aid is not a good metaphor because they took Flavor Aid in Jonestown, not Kool-Aid.
Okay.
Kool-Aid got a bad name.
Strong.
Right.
Go on.
But anyway, the voter turnout was a record low.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it was indifference. I mean, that's the real villain here. The real problem is total indifference.
Well, I'm going to go one step further. Candace, I've never trotted this theory out to you before.
Oh, Lord.
So this is coming fresh off my head. Look out where this is going. I've been thinking. This is what I thought about when I was on vacation. Now, Donald Trump likes to say that cities are hellholes and the people who live there should just abandon the Democratic Party because the Democrats have done nothing for them. That's one of his favorite themes. Yeah. And he never lends a hand, of course, to help the cities. He's the most powerful man in America. Right. He could do a lot to help the cities. But I've been thinking about him, and I'm just thinking Chicago, the city I know the best. Our Democratic mayors have run Chicago as though they were Republicans. And by that I mean they don't aggressively raise the taxes on the wealthiest people. They don't tax the wealth that we have in the city of Chicago. Like the LaSalle tax is a perfect example. And then use that money to help people, the poorest of the poor. Instead, so much of the programs intended to help the poorest of the poor candidates, you know where I'm going with this, have helped the richest of the rich. So I think that feeds the very apathy and alienation that we saw evidenced by the turnout in the election of 2019, just last April.
Right.
And I just feel as though, to a certain degree, and this will hurt Democrats when they try to rally against Trump, that they're their own worst enemies because they don't do enough for their base. Do you follow what I'm saying, Kim?
I mean, but what's Lori's base? To be honest, what's Lori's base? Lori met with Ivanka Trump before she met with new aldermen. So what's Lori's base? Where's Lori's base? Or was Lori just not in the political realm enough that it made like Tony look like an insider, right? Which, I mean, let's be clear. Tony is one of the ultimate insiders.
Yes,
and for progressives to go for Tony, it was all hold my nose and cast a ballot. Nobody thought it would be Tony and Lori. Nobody thought it would be Tony and Lori. So a lot of voters was like, I don't like the sugar tax, so I'm going to go out here and vote for Lori. A lot of people did that. And this is what we got.
Well, yeah. Part of the problem is that since Daley became mayor to this day, there has been this movement to turn Chicago into Paris. And by that, what I mean is, in Paris, if you ever go to Paris, the middle class and the rich people live in the city, and the poor people live in the ringing suburbs around. Mm-hmm. And that's what's Rahm was really doing that, like on the fast track, you know, along the Chicago River.
Yeah,
he's just, you know, he's skip all this red tape. These people want to build these buildings for very rich people. Mm-hmm. Let's do it. Let's get it done. And so there's never been any interest. They don't want the poor. They don't want poor blacks, poor whites, poor anybody in the city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. That's exactly what they're doing. So people talk about how Latino people are moving into traditionally black neighborhoods. They're moving into traditionally black neighborhoods because they were pushed out of traditional Latino neighborhoods like Humboldt Park and Pilsen. Mm-hmm. So they're moving into Inglewood and Woodlawn because that's where they see housing opportunities at. And guess what? People are now being pushed out of Woodlawn. We had a house to sell the other day in Woodlawn to go up, to be listed for $700,000. Think about that. Woodlawn that used to have one of the worst blocks in America on it, 6th and King Drive. And now, blocks away from that, you have a $700,000 house because of the idea of the coming Obama Center.
Yeah.
Wow, the gentrification that's going $700,000.
$700,000
in Woodlawn.
And it's not like it hasn't happened to Bronzeville already. So if we really want to talk about the rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, and black people especially being pushed out of the city, that's exactly what's happening. If we don't take a hard look at our elected officials and what they put forward and push, we will be in a world of hurt in 5 years.
All right, let me ask you this. At this outset of our conversation, I was advocating Bernie's strategy, if necessary, to go to Kentucky and rally people in Kentucky against Mitch McConnell, with the idea being that there are certain issues that bind even Trump voters to Democrats, okay? Both of you sort of dismissed that as too naive or idealistic. Won't happen. All right, let's move this struggle to Chicago. Do you think a similar thing would work in the city of Chicago, where progressives who are upset with Tony's, let's say, her abandonment of a tax on the wealthiest, sale of the wealthiest homes, $1 million homes, and use that money to promote affordable housing, which she seems to be walking away from. Do you think that if progressives fought hard in the city of Chicago, they would find supporters of that in the city, or do you think that people would be turned off by that attitude?
I think they would find supporters of that. That's how Alderwoman Rosanna Rodriguez beat Dan Mill. I mean, yes, it was by just a few votes, and every vote counts. But that's how that happened. It happened because you had the 33rd Working Families Party that went door to door, that never slacked off, that pushed and fought. So, yeah. And
but
they did issues.
You need a messenger. You know,
you need a messenger.
If Harold Washington was alive, or if there is a Harold Washington out there, he or she could bring the message, and it would work. Bernie couldn't do it. I can't right now. I can't think of anybody who.
We're talking local. I have been hearing people say millennials make fun of me because I always talk about Harold Washington,
yeah.
And they always say, Ben, Harold Washington's not walking through the door anytime
exactly.
soon.
No, Harold's dead. I said a Harold Washington, not the Harold Washington.
So,
but we need an inspirational. You need somebody who's inspirational and who can fire people up.
So, I would agree with that to a certain extent, but I don't think it's just a Harold Washington. You also need a John H. Johnson who is willing to help bankroll, who is open-minded and progressive in himself enough to help bankroll a Harold Washington.
You're talking to a guy who worked for
John H. Johnson. That's not the guy.
But I mean, he helped bankroll a lot of stuff.
Huh?
He helped bankroll a lot of stuff when it came to that election, and we don't have black business in the city that is willing to bankroll that type of political fight.
Oh, he did it on the QT.
He did.
He did on the QT.
Now,
he didn't stand up and.
he didn't.
Did he bankroll his employees, Monroe?
No, he didn't bankroll his employees.
My mom actually worked for Ravine and Duke in their sales department, and no.
Okay.
But
you guys see eye to eye on that one, then.
No, but he did. But even if it was behind the scenes, we don't even have that willingness from a lot of black and brown financial people in the city. We don't have that willingness, and Chance the Rapper just don't have it enough. And he just doesn't have enough.
What do you mean? He doesn't have it enough? He doesn't have the money or the connections?
He doesn't have the money yet enough to do that by himself. He just doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
Yeah.
Well, it's very curious how this is going because the fight over you mentioned the Harold Washington Center, the Barack Obama Center, and the impact that's having on real estate prices on the south side of Chicago, in Woodland, etc. And I was against putting it on the south side. I throw that out there. I say it all the time. You're rolling your eyes, and of course nobody listens to me. And they put it on the south side, and it was widely considered what people on the south side wanted.
Make no mistake, right? We want the Obama Center. We just don't want the displacement that's going to come along with it. Mm-hmm. We don't want the higher taxes that's going to come along with it. We want the jobs. We want the training. We want the investment that they want to put in the schools and the libraries. Absolutely. We just don't want to be displaced. And I think whenever we get new development, black and brown people are the first people to be displaced. President Barack Hussein Obama deserves a library that is amazing for so many reasons. Mm-hmm. And I am not the biggest Barack Obama fan.
I know that. Yeah.
He deserves an amazing library. He really does. He deserves an amazing center. However, he also deserves for the people that he used to fight for to still be in their homes.
Well, it's been a long time since he was fighting for those people.
Very true.
I think you have to go back to the 80s. Okay.
I was one.
All right. Yes, you were one of the people that he was fighting for.
No, I was 1 year old.
Okay, yeah. You were about 1 year old when Barack was fighting for those people. And Doris Davenport nodding her head. So it's been a while. But I appreciate that fight that he made in the 1985 before he went to law school. The fight on the local level, and I guess we'll have to leave it here, from the get-go with the Obama Center, is that there has to be some sort of legislation passed with it that protects the sort of the economic interests of people who live in the neighborhood right now. And the Obamas have been unwilling from the get-go to sign on to that kind of legislation. And they've not lobbied for it with the city of Chicago. They've not pushed it with the city of Chicago. They're
Washingtonians now. They're not Chicagoans.
Well, and so from the foundation perspective, not from Barack and Michelle, but from the foundation perspective, they always felt like it needed to be with the city, that the community benefits agreement needed to be with the city and not with the foundation. And now Alderman Taylor and Alderman Harrison, they put legislation forward that is with the city and not the foundation. So the foundation has said previously that, yeah, we're with it if it comes from the city
Well, this
side.
is significant. Are they going to sign on? Is the foundation going to endorse this legislation?
That's yet to be seen.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll be watching that one closely, Candace Castillo. And
I say keep Cornell open.
Yeah, oh, that's a whole other issue. She doesn't want to hear that. Candace Castillo, my guest in the studio. Monroe Anderson, my guest. We got Doris Davenport. We're going to bring her on. Thank you very much, both of you, for showing up. I appreciate it. The honest discussion. And not afraid to disagree every now and then. Candace smiling at Monroe saying, yeah, I'll take you down next time, too. All right, Candace Castillo, Monroe Anderson.
No, I'm a gentleman.
Yeah, he's a gentleman. Very good. Thank you very much. Got Doris Davenport on. We'll bring her on when we return. Hey, everybody. What you're about to hear are the piano stylings of Jeff Manuel. Man, listen to Jeff go. Jeff Manuel has been playing piano around Chicago for years. He's played for conventions, for celebrities, played in basement bars with blues bands. He's played at prestigious social clubs, fine restaurants, and in the intimacy of private homes. Book Jeff Manuel at jeffemanuelpianist.com. Don't worry, I'll spell his name at the end of this commercial. You know what Chicago Magazine said? They said that Jeff Manuel is, quote, as comfortable with Chopin as he is with Cole Porter. He's excellent and his performance is joyous. He offers an elegant stream of compositions and interpretations that entertains the mind but won't hurt the ears. To hear more of Jeff Manuel's work and to book Jeff for your next event, go to jeffmanuelpianist.com. I'm going to spell it out for you, people. Jeff. M as in Mary, A, N as in Nancy, UELPIANIST.com. Take it away, Jeff Manuel.
Today's Ben Joravsky Show was brought to you in part by Chicago Architecture Center. Get to know your city on one of Chicago Architecture Center's 65 walking tours. Hear the unforgettable secrets and stories behind Chicago architecture from our expert docents. Book your tour at architecture.org/tours. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm actually on a tour right now. Oh, wow, look at that building. Get a special discount for Illinois residents from July 15th to August 15th. All Illinois residents get 50% off select walking tours. Visit architecture.org/IL-resident. Attention Chicago innovators and creators, 2019 Chicago Ideas Week is coming soon. October 12th through the 17th, this annual Ideas Festival is back, and it's the largest, most affordable Ideas Festival of its kind. They bring in hundreds of thought leaders from around the globe and some local to share ideas and spark action all across Chicago. To get a better idea of what to expect, here's a bit of audio from last year's Chicago Ideas Week with special guest and Chicago comedian Cameron Esposito.
Everything that I have ever tried to do has had two motivations. One is I really do believe in trying to create social change. And then the other one is I'm scared and alone too. So I would like for you to join me. You know, every job that I have, I try to make sure to hold the door open. That's like my motto for like if I get through, you're coming with me. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. And especially if I have more privilege than you, like I'm holding the door open for you even wider.
October 12th through the 17th, it's 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Tickets go on sale to members on August 22nd and to general public September 10th. Once again, if you're an innovator or creator in the city of Chicago or even outside the city, you must join us for Chicago Ideas Week, October 12th through the 17th. For tickets and event information, head to chicagoideas.com. That's chicagoideas.com. And we hope to see you October 12th through the 17th for 2019 Chicago Ideas Week. Hey, welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed, we are live from the Chicago Sun-Times. Monroe Anderson has left the studio, but Doris Davenport is here. Candace Castillo said, Doris Davenport's not here? I'm going to stick around because I want to talk with Doris Davenport. They have something in common, D. They are both on a certain radio station where I used to work. Yeah, how about that?
I used to work there too.
Yeah, I know. I'm a forgiving guy. You know, talk about forgiving. Okay, you were talking about how black women are the most forgiving people in the world. How about me? All right, I forgave. I got all these people from that old radio station on. I'm always forgiving. I just can't remember. I forget. I can't remember the name of that station, but I know Doris will help me out with that one.
I was going to say.
Yeah, sure. What was it again?
WCPT.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yeah.
Every Saturday morning, 10 to 11.
And every Saturday morning from 9 to 10, you can listen to the Brandon Johnson Show.
So that would be Sunday morning.
Yes.
Yeah,
so Saturday and Sunday morning, you should be listening to
I've always said I love the weekend lineup at WCP. Doris knows that. I used to promote out of it.
That's
back in the day. Do they still promote the weekend lineup?
Some do, some don't. But I do think they're trying to do a better job of it.
Oh, yeah. They forgot. They think that the world ends on Friday afternoon. Anyway,
it's like, hey, wait a minute.
Okay.
What you got for me, D?
Ben Joravsky, the only radio host that promoted weekend shows ever. All right, we have something we want to tell everybody about on Friday. This Friday, August 23rd, from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m., the Chicago Reader, well, they're having themselves a little telethon, all right? It's live on Facebook and chicagoreader.com. Just find the Chicago Reader on Facebook, Chicago Reader. That's all you got to do. Look for it, friend them, and then you can watch this telethon. It's a live telethon online to launch the Reader's new monthly donors campaign. The Chicago Reader is once again editorially independent and locally owned. Our coverage is focused on politics and culture, and we cannot do this work without the support of our readers. We need you, all right? As we move toward our 50th anniversary, every dollar that you give helps fund the experienced, diverse journalists and editors producing the Reader online daily. There's going to be special guests on this telethon, and the Ben Joravsky Show will be broadcasting live from the Chicago Reader this Friday, August 23rd. What is that? Hello? This Friday, August 23rd, the Ben Joravsky Show will be broadcasting live. We're going to have all kinds of writer, journalist, dorks. It's going to be a fantastic time. Ben will be there, and 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. Look for us on Facebook. Look for us on the Chicago Reader website, chicagoreader.com. We hope you'll join us. It's going to be a fantastic time this Friday.
Yeah, we're going to take the show on the road, and D will be you'll be working major overtime because you'll be the whole show you'll be producing.
Yes, I will.
From 7 to 7.
7 to 7.
Make sure you get your sleep.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I'm making that money, baby. I'm loving it. Whatever.
Making that money. All
baby.
Right, baby. Yes, indeed. Dr. D will be making the money. The Pride and Joy Bowl.
It's going to be a fantastic time. Isn't that right, Robert Mueller?
That's correct.
All right. Thank you. Very good. Yeah, if Robert Mueller says so, it must be true. All right, Doris Davenport. It's been a while since I saw you. I was on vacation. Haven't seen you in at least a month, so good to see you.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here, and I just love the technology upgrade that you guys are doing over here.
Yes, and you were pointing out that's our new camera, which we're the beneficiaries of an anonymous donor. Anonymous because I'm giving the pronoun out, does not want his name known. Okay, so he will remain anonymous, but God bless this guy. He gave this really cool camera.
Yeah, well, I have to take some notes because I could use a couple of anonymous donors myself.
They're nice to have. But you have that camera for your show,
I do.
Right?
That's the camera that I use.
And are you the one who runs it, or do you have somebody running it for you?
It depends on which show it is. But usually I run it myself. I have run it myself for the past year. I have a couple of interns that work with me now. So it just depends. But it is a little, you've got to be flexible. When the interns aren't there, I have to go back to.
Oh, I was just going to say, for those who download the show, go check out the live stream, see our new camera. It's a Mevo camera. It's fantastic.
That's right.
Yeah. Miles is doing a great job, I presume. He's wheeling and dealing behind the scenes.
Yeah, he's doing a good job.
Yeah. So anyway, Doris Davenport is in the studio, and I guess, Doris, we'll start with... we've been talking a lot of national news lately, so let's just pick up asking everybody for their thoughts about Mayor Pete coming to Bronzeville yesterday. And I know I sent you that text this morning saying I would love to hear what your thoughts. We've already heard Candace on the subject, Monroe on the subject, and I had a little fun with it myself in the introduction. Mayor Pete comes to Bronzeville, which is a black neighborhood in the south side of Chicago, as Candace points out, it's a rapidly gentrifying neighborhood in the city of Chicago, and he goes to the Harold Washington Cultural Center, and virtually everybody in the audience is white, which is she's laughing already. So your general thoughts on this?
Well, I recall the last time I was here, you asked me what I thought about different candidates, and Buttigieg was one of them.
Okay.
And I said then, which I think just proved itself to be true yesterday, is that you don't wait until you're running for president to decide that maybe you need to reach out to the largest voting bloc in the United States of America. So yeah, I think that he's got a real uphill climb. I don't think he's polled any higher than 1% in any national poll when it comes to the black vote. And that's both in the East Coast and, of course, the Southern primaries that are going to be...
They're huge.
Huge. Yeah. And I don't even think he's at 1%
I don't
there.
think he is at 1%.
I was like, he's got 1% of a black voter somewhere?
I know.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this in general thoughts since the last time in the show. God, I haven't done any presidential talk in a while. Anyone that you're really feeling the vibe on? That you're
yeah, but I want to just say again with Buttigieg, part of the issue with him and black voters, I think, is it's kind of like he's got everything. He's promising everything. And it's one thing if you have one or two ideas that you want to present to the people, but when you do and make an assessment of what people want, and you literally put every single one of those items on your agenda and say, this is what I'm going to do, with no regard for the laws that have to be passed on the state level, no regard for, he can't just, the things that he's saying he's going to do, you can't just do by executive order with a stroke of a pen.
Yeah.
So...
Well, the other thing is, I must have said this to you either on the show or just in one of our many phone conversations, is that introduction that black voters in particular have toward a white politician is so key. And the introduction, I remember the introduction 4 years ago to Bernie Sanders. So many black voters would tell me, he's from Vermont. There's no black people in Vermont. Why didn't he stay in New York? You know how many times I heard that?
Yeah.
Okay. And Bernie struggled, let's be honest. It was the black vote that gave Hillary the nomination.
Well, yeah, I subscribe to one of the Twitter channels, Instagram channels, Vermont Living, just because I love the beautiful, serene pictures. But I have yet to see a black person in any one of those pictures.
So my best friend was in Vermont for work. And she said that she looked for the black people. She was there for months. She was like, I looked for black people. I saw 3, all of them in the airport.
Passing through. I think Bernie's doing a little better this time. Don't you agree, Doris?
Not really.
Oh, wow. Okay, there goes that.
Doris.
Yeah.
All right, explain, both of you.
When Bernie first came out, he had novel ideas. Nobody else was talking about the progressive ideas that he was talking about. But now, all of his ideas are out there, so everybody's got a piece of that. And so he's no longer, he's not distinguished himself. And I don't think he's going to be able to overcome all the issues with the lack of diversity and equity within his own campaign. So it's kind of hard to go on the national stage and talk about equity and diversity when right in your own backyard, it's just not happening.
She's not feeling the burn.
And yeah, I I totally agree. He has a diversity issue in his campaign. And one of his most public people, Simone Sanders, has left and went to the Biden campaign and said she wasn't even asked to come back to the Bernie campaign.
Really?
So that says a lot. And I love Nina Turner in so many ways. However, Bernie isn't unique anymore. So Killer Mike, the rapper, is still on his team, and that's great, but he's also said some very problematic things about the NRA. So it's how do you capture that vote? And how do you capture that vote where there's people with so many ideas that are similar and he's not saying anything new?
Who are you feeling these days, Doris?
Well, I'm always going to feel Biden. I think Biden is, for many blacks in America, a safe choice. People want change, but they also are really interested in making sure that the boat continues to rock steady. But you know what? I'm going for Sister Girl. I like Kamala Harris. And I think that there needs to be more voices at the table that are black voices, black female voices. I am quite tired of looking around the country and looking at every single aspect of our nation, be it the boardroom, be it advertisements, be it doesn't really matter. Even the welfare line, they want everybody to think it's us on the welfare line, but it really isn't. But I think I'm gonna support Kamala Harris. That's who I'm looking at. She is the one. If I were going to say that's who I'm gonna run for, I might even consider being a delegate for Kamala Harris.
Well, that is breaking news. You're really going on for Kamala. I mean, I was drinking some of that Kool-Aid a little while ago. As you recall, last time you were on, I was feeling the vibe, but then she did so poorly in the last debate.
Yeah.
Particularly on the healthcare issue, which I think is just like the key issue the Democrats have for them. If you just, aside from we hate Donald Trump, which I think we all agree on, right? Healthcare is so paramount. That's why I'm feeling Bernie these days.
Well, but remember, Trump he did so poorly on one debate, then he did very well on another debate.
Valid point.
They come back.
Obama too.
That's right. But now you know what my ultimate has always been. I mean, I've said it every time I've been on the show. I'd like to see a Biden-Kamala ticket.
Yes, with Biden as the vice president.
That's right.
Okay.
With Biden supporting the black woman.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
I can't say. Are you feeling Kamala or Biden?
I want to.
Come on, sister girl.
Really want to feel Kamala.
Yeah, but
I really want to feel Kamala.
Here comes a but.
But I mean, she's a black woman with an amazing story. Not only is she a black woman, but I would love to see an HBCU grad in the White House. However, if you look at her record as state's attorney general in California, it's very problematic. And yes, I share the sentiments of I am sick of looking around and seeing not just white men, but old white men at that. However, if you still take some of those tactics of old white men and put them in black female form, you still get the same outcomes.
All right, Doris.
And that's my issue. If Stacey Abrams was in the race, I would have nothing to say about it.
Response from Doris Davenport.
Well, before I respond, I have a question to ask you.
Sure.
Who are you feeling? Just the name.
Warren.
Elizabeth Warren. Oh, and you don't feel that she has any baggage?
I feel like she has some baggage, but not the same type of baggage or same amount that Kamala has. If I had to pick a top five, because it's so many candidates, you can
do the top five.
She's definitely in my top five. First would be Warren for me. A second one, this is dream team, but it would be Julian. I like Julian Castro. Right. Number 3 is Kamala.
And who's 4 and 5?
Bernie and Biden.
Okay, Biden's on the top 5. Where's Mayor Pete in that list? Just kidding.
Even though I will say this, I can't stand Beto. Cannot stand him. I kind of like the strategy of just going everywhere right now. Like, what? I'm going to Mississippi. What? I'm going to this random gun show. What? I am just going everywhere and talking to everybody because, well, I saw there was a billboard for a gun show and I want to tell them how problematic it is. I actually like that.
Listen, this is Beto, put him as your vice president. I don't care who the nominee is, and send him down to Texas. That 38, he is the one who put that in my mind, Doris Davenport, at the debate. Remember, he goes, there's 38 electoral votes in Texas. It's in play.
Right. That's right.
Send him down to Texas.
That's right. Let him work on those votes.
Work on those votes. Get 38. Take those 38 votes away. That's what the Republicans do with the Democrats, by the way.
Yeah,
Democrats got to be a little slick every now and then.
Yeah.
And who's your top 5, Doris?
I was just kind of looking up at the names now. I think we've got 10 now that are left.
It's more than that.
No, there's more than 10.
10 that's going to make the debate
Well, no, there are
stage.
10. That's what I'm saying. There are 10 that have made the debate
I think
stage.
there's still 23.
No,
altogether.
20. I thought it was 21.
Was it? I could been on
I know
vacation
it
for a week.
keeps changing,
All right.
but I'm gonna really focus on. All right, so Harris, Biden, Warren is in my top 5, and then who I like. Who you always laugh at me when I say this is what's my friend who just
Marianne Williamson?
No, who just laid it out there and talked about how if I had to draw a line from slavery to Jim Crow to modern day slavery, and he said if you want to look at how we can change the pipeline to prison, look at our schools.
Cory
because
Booker?
80%, no, the most nondescript white man running.
Bennett.
Bennett.
You love Bennett.
Michael Bennett.
You love Michael Bennett.
You laugh at me every time I say that.
He likes Michael Bennett.
Because when he gets mad, he goes there. I haven't seen any of the others really go there on an issue that really matters to me.
Well,
wait, so you got just a Kamala, Biden, Warren, and Bernie. You have even Bernie? Bernie's not even in your list. So you got Bennett, and who's the 5th?
I haven't decided on my 5th yet.
What about Cory? Nobody has Cory anywhere on their list. You're not feeling Cory at all.
I like Cory
But
Booker.
please address, Candace's concerns about Kamala's position as
Attorney General.
Attorney General, go ahead.
So, I feel, and the reason I asked the question before I wanted to answer is because I think when it really boils down to who are you going to support, if you say that you think your candidate like Elizabeth Warren has baggage, well, okay, then you can put apples to apples. None of them are coming to the table without baggage.
Yeah.
And so if you look at Kamala's record as Attorney General in California, you can look at some of the things they talk about the bail and the bondsman. But remember this, it is the largest state. She has the most complicated, most complex criminal justice system in the country, and she took that bull by the horns to try and change things. And in order sometimes to change things of that magnitude, you're doing things. It's like when they say the wheels of justice turn slowly. She did some really great things while she was there. Now, you don't get to be Attorney General and get reelected in there doing things if you're just going to try and change things overnight. I just don't think that's possible. Does she have baggage on the issues of what she did as an Attorney General? Some of the people that wanted to see things happen fast, they'll say yes. She didn't do right. She didn't do the right thing. But if you look at the long arm picture of the things that she did, I think people would have a hard time arguing about her overall success as Attorney General.
I can't.
Are you convinced?
I'm not. For me, when it comes to Elizabeth Warren, as of now, any candidate that brings up the mortality rate of Black women in childbirth as one of the issues on the top, not talking about it a year into her running, but talking about it into the first 6 months of her running, it's hard for me to deny that, period. I do 100% agree, and I would add to it that Black people have to take particular paths to power that other people don't especially have to take. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I like more and more.
But it's kind of a given. I mean, it stands out to hear a white woman talk about Black female mortality and say it at the top of her ticket. If I look at Kamala Harris, as a Black woman, I say it's a given.
Right.
I mean, she's not going to talk about that as her number one thing, although I'm not disagreeing that maybe she should. But do I think that because it's not her number one thing that she wouldn't make it a priority? I absolutely don't think that.
I don't think that, but I think for me, a lot of things was a given with Barack Obama, and it ended up not being.
She had to go there.
Yeah,
A given.
You knew she was going
so
to Barack.
I definitely need to see it in writing.
The thing I liked about Kamala in that first debate had to do with the forcefulness with which she counterattacked Joe Biden
on the school segregation
on the school segregation thing. And I've since learned and read that it was like she was ready for that moment. It wasn't spontaneous. It was prepared for. These are, we all know these are TV shows, and they prepare for it. They're little sound bites, et cetera, and so forth. And so I've really retreated from I was really crazy about Kamala, because I felt that she could do that. She could be a forceful champion for all the democratic values against Trump, because ultimately that's what it's going to come down to. Mm-hmm. Do you follow what I'm saying? Yeah. And I still like that part of her, Doris. But then when I saw her stumble on healthcare in that second debate, and I understand you guys both said it, that everybody stumbles at certain debates, they get their footing, etc. That's what caused me to pull back, because that's the part of Bernie that I like. That Bernie's not retreating in any way from what he thinks are these key core issues, these values like healthcare for all, which he's been promoting now on the national stage for 5 years now.
Right.
So you get what I'm saying? That's what I liked about Kamala.
I do, and I'd love to know what you think about this, Candace, too, as a black woman. Or as a woman, really, because I think the difference between what you just described as Bernie's response to something like that and Kamala's response to something like that was, in essence, when you're running for office on the national stage at that level, you've got to almost have a steely filter when it comes to your emotions. I think Kamala allowed her emotions to get in the way when she responded. First of all, if she could have picked all the people across that stage who she would have expected an attack from, I think the least person she would have expected an attack from was
Tulsi Gabbard.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Mm-hmm.
And when Tulsi Gabbard came on and she didn't back down and she came on strong, you even kind of saw a little from Kamala.
I can see that little look on her new camera.
And you know that's what she felt because she called her a 1%er later. So I understand that emotion got in the way, and it was kind of like, wait, who are you to try it? So I think she was dealing with a lot of things in that moment. Mm-hmm. And what I would like to see Kamala do is to really take on the approach that a lot of the men take on, which is they don't see the person. It's all about the issues, and just deal with the issue itself. Because, I'm not going to just say that she stumbled because of that, because yes, she has flip-flopped on her health care plan. She's got one thing written one way, and as she talks about it, she kind of skirts around what she really wants to do. Strategically, I understand why she's doing it that way. And frankly, it doesn't bother me that she's doing it because I understand it.
But Bernie Sanders is the most emotional guy in the room.
But it's about his issues, not the person.
No, it was about it. When he responded with, I know it's in the bill, I wrote the damn bill, he was not just responding about the issue, he was responding to the person.
I mean, that's just him, though. He's so dramatic.
Exactly. But that's the problem. We expect women, and especially women of color, to not do the head tilt and look like you crazy at people.
I like that about Kamala.
No, that's what I liked about her. That's what I liked about her.
That's what I like about her.
But that's not what I'm talking about.
But
What are you talking about?
I'm not talking about her way of being expressive and bringing that. I think she should bring that. That's her strength. And with a Donald Trump, that would definitely be advisor. I would advise her to do that.
And Donald Trump, who takes everything personally, including his comments about Greenland today.
Oh my goodness! I didn't really get a chance to talk that with Monroe. We went because that was on my list to talk about with Monroe. I don't know if you heard this, Doris, but when I was on vacation, she told this stuff. Whatever. Donald Trump got the idea of buying Greenland from Denmark.
I heard that,
okay,
and Denmark said that is absolutely
it's not for sale.
Ridiculous.
Okay, yeah. Well, then he was
what was the word they used? It was an interesting word.
I don't know. So then Trump was offended by some of the comments that the Prime Minister of Denmark made, Frederiksen.
They canceled his trip.
Yeah, and canceled his trip, had a little hissy fit, and he said, when she says nasty things, she was nasty, and when she says nasty things about me, quote, she's not talking to me, she's talking to the United States of America.
Oh,
as though Donald Trump, our president of the United States, is somehow or other the epitome of the United States of America. If you trash Donald Trump, then you're trashing the United States of America. I think Donald Trump's position as president of the United States is demeaning to the United States of America, if you follow what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
I agree too.
So and this man of all people to say that, because all he does is trash Barack Obama.
Oh yeah. I mean, he has tried to dismantle every single piece of legislation that Barack Obama made while he was in office.
Yeah.
Barack Obama, he trashes everybody.
Well, I'm talking about
except for Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln.
But he thinks
everybody
Frederick
else
Douglass is
trash.
still living.
Well, yeah, Monroe and I had lunch with Frederick Douglass last week. But
That was a callback.
but it's still like he trashes everybody. He says trashy stuff about Bush, Clinton, everybody else.
Yeah.
He is a trashy character. Like that's what he is. But he said it was a tone in the way she said it wasn't for sale. It hurt my feel. Really, bro? He also said he was the second coming this morning. So hey, I don't know.
He said what?
Yeah. He said some Jews say that he's the second coming.
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Oh, no, he is doubling down on, he is just doubling down, as he usually does, on his attempt to try to divide Jewish voters from the Democratic Party. I think ultimately it'll fail. Jewish voters, roughly 80%, I think it was, Doris Davenport, went for the Democrats in the 2018 congressional races. That's an anti-Trump vote. We all know what that vote was all about. I do not think he will be successful in that any more than I think he will be successful at getting black votes by championing the release of the rapper from
A$AP Rocky.
A$AP Rocky. I'm just forgetting which country. It was Sweden, I was going to say. And I don't think that will work. I don't think his friendship with Kanye will work. I don't think his friendship with Steve Harvey will work, get black voters. And I don't think, ultimately, saying that Jews are disloyal to Israel and to themselves will work to get Jewish voters. Personally, I don't know what you're
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, frankly, if you're a Jewish person living in the United States of America, you know, most Jewish people, they're less religious than they are political. They'll tell you that themselves. I mean, I've studied as a seminarian, we've studied a lot about that, right? And I'm constantly going to seminars to learn more about their culture and our relationship with the country. And, you know, Donald Trump is being loyal to the leadership of Israel. That is a military relationship. It's very, very strategic. So I don't think he's being, well, I don't know if it's possible to advise Donald Trump when he starts talking, but I think these are the kinds of things that are going to bite him in the butt, because the Jewish people are not going to just listen to Donald Trump. And first of all, if he thinks the next thing he's going to do is threaten them and say, we're going to cut off funding for Israel if you all don't vote for me. That's not going to happen.
I don't think these messages have anything to do with the Jewish people. I think all of his messages has to do with Christian conservatives, period.
I'll explain that.
So a lot of Christian conservatives say that, and not Christian, not regular Christian people, but Christian conservatives.
Right. But they
Christian
support
far
all
right.
of the Israelis.
They support Israel with the idea that when Jesus comes back, Israel has to be intact.
That's right.
So even what he was saying about Jewish people today has to do with more dog whistles to that group of I will protect Israel even if these Jewish people over here won't. It had to do more with that, to me, than it ever had to do with actual Jewish voters. Jewish voters for a long time have been reliably pretty right.
Oh yeah,
pretty left.
Pretty left.
They're more liberal.
Yeah,
they're more
reliable
liberal than most.
Yeah.
It's probably the most loyal voters to the Democratic Party if you just do it by ethnic groups.
Yeah.
Blacks, number one. Jews, number two. So,
and I wish that we had more people really talking about that issue with the conservative right, because that's how Donald Trump gets to get away with that. And I think most of these presidential candidates need surrogates out there that can break that down, because the Israel that they protect is not even the biblical Israel.
all right, before we get into a long discussion of the biblical Israel, we're going to take a break and we'll come back. We're going to bring it back local with a wrap up. We're going to get Doris' thoughts on Dorothy Brown. We'll be right back after this.
Oh, wait, Donald Trump wants to weigh in before we move on here on that.
No collusion.
Oh, okay,
Thanks, Donald.
That was like 2 months ago, dude. Today's Ben Joravsky Show is brought to you in part by Green Element Resale. It's a fantastic place, and it's located at 6241 North Broadway Street in Chicago. And people, it is badass, all right? Furniture, books, appliances, antiques, Ben's favorite, candles, all kinds of stuff here at Green Element Resale. It's a fantastic place, Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., Sunday, 12 until 7 p.m. It's off Broadway, right between Granville and Devon, 6241 North Broadway Street. Green Element Resale. Go there and save tons of money. Welcome back to the Ben Joravsky Show, live from the Chicago Sun-Times.
Yes, indeed, we are live from the Chicago Sun-Times. We've got a few minutes left. Doris, I told you I was going to get your thoughts about Dorothy Brown. We've done all this national talk today. Just a little local talk. Dorothy Brown, I talked about this yesterday. She is the clerk of the circuit court, has been since the year 2000. All right? There's the kids who are 19 years old. If you ask them who's the clerk of the circuit court, all they could tell you is Dorothy Brown. Actually, I don't believe there's many people at all who could tell you who the clerk of the circuit court is. Your thoughts on Dorothy Brown, her legacy, the office itself. There's a lot of people who want to run for that, who want to replace her. Your general thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's becoming a really crowded field for sure. I remember when Dorothy Brown first stepped out to run, I supported her 2000. She was a breath of fresh air when she came out. Everybody really had not really seen a woman. I think at that time she had 3 degrees, accounting degree, law degree, and another degree. Very well educated, had a strong track record of success in all the things that she had done. And she was faith-based, is faith-based. That's her strongest support, in fact. And she just kept winning election after election after election, in spite of all of the attacks and federal investigations, et cetera. I think the important thing to remember is that she has never, ever been accused of wrongdoing. And in fact, some of the people that are part of that federal investigation, those people who accused her of wrongdoing, these are staff members, not the federal government. They ended up going to jail or being convicted for lying to the courts. And I think that when you look at her track record, especially as clerk of the circuit court, people talk about the lack of her transforming it into the world of technology. I think you have to really look across the board at a lot of different agencies. Look at the assessor's office. Look at a number of these offices that we know are understaffed and under-resourced. And it takes a lot to be able to turn those agencies in, especially from a technology standpoint, because I think in the realm of the circuit court, if you remember back in 2003, I think Mike Quigley and people like what's the professor's name from the University of Chicago that's always doing political commentary. Anyway, they did a major report. It was called Reinventing Cook County.
Oh, I remember that. Wow, what a memory you have.
I know, right?
Where'd you pluck that one out?
I don't know. It just was like floating there. Yeah. But the point is, they've been talking about making the clerk's office an appointed office as opposed to an elected office for a long time. And I think the more attacks that they can throw at it since then keeps giving them justification for finally one day making that possible. But I think Dorothy Brown, I wish her well, whatever she's going to do in her next life. I really take offense at the people who are throwing darts at her because she made a statement that she's now fully vested in her pension. Why not? That's the reason why people get jobs in the first place, is to get to their point where they're fully vested in their pension, and they can then, go off into the sunset. And now she wants to spend her life doing things to help other people. Well, God bless her.
Do you share?
Pretty much. Yeah. So Dorothy Brown is one of the most intelligent politicians I've ever sat down and had a conversation with on so many levels. I respect her wholeheartedly.
Yes.
When I graduated from high school, I had a slew of friends who worked in her office as young black women learning how to be professional black women. So yeah, I wish her the best. And I hope she still works in the community.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to disagree with you on Dorothy Brown a little bit on this one. On the issue of the pension, I think her saying that the way she did, making that strong assertion, it's just made it that much more difficult to stand up for pension, the rights of pensioners. I wish she hadn't said it that way. Laura Washington was probably the person you were thinking of who took issue with her. Laura Washington, columnist for the Chicago Sun-Times, put a hard-hitting column about that. And I just feel like when politicians say, well, now I can leave office because I'm fully vested, it just kind of undercuts. Like, there's a lot of people who need their pensions. They're not professionals with 3 degrees. They need those pensions. They live off those pensions. And it's easy. It just turns it into like an attack issue on the pension issue. So I'm going to have to disagree with you on that point about Dorothy. I wish Dorothy Brown had been more forceful candidate for mayor back in 2007, but that's a whole other issue. All right, Doris Davenport and Candace Castillo. Dennis is saying we have to get out of here.
Thank you, Ben Joravsky. It's always a pleasure.
It is.
Thanks,
indeed.
Ben.
Candace, thank you so much. Doris Davenport, Monroe Anderson, Miles, the man, the myth, the legend, running that camera like he was Francis Ford Coppola. And, of course, the man, the myth, the legend behind the board, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois. And as Doris Davenport can tell you, back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Keep yourself a raise. Take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
And remember, you can download previous Ben Joravsky shows and Benny J bonus interviews at both Chicago Sun-Times and Chicago Reader website, chicago.suntimes.com/pages/Joravsky, chicagoreader.com, and wherever else you download your favorite podcast. We will see you tomorrow.